Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I work with the Dan River Basin Association. People call us DARBA for short. We're a nonprofit organization that protects, preserves, and promotes the natural and cultural resources of the Dan River watershed. That's where you live. But we can't do any of that unless we understand some of the threats that we face here in our watershed to our natural resources. So there are three types of environmental pollution that DARBA looks at when we're protecting our watershed: air pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution. So when we look at these photos, what do they all have in common? They are all forms of air pollution. So that is the air pollution. The definition is the introduction into the atmosphere of things that just don't belong there, like chemicals or biological materials that can cause harm to humans, vegetables, plants, animals, and the environment. In the Dan River Basin, we have three main types of air pollution, and that's exhaust from cars. We have some factories that nasty stuff comes out of their when they're making things, and some people burn garbage in their backyard. You can't burn plastic and you can't burn treated wood. This can cause air pollution and a lot of problems for both humans and the environment. So when we look at these pictures, what do these have all in common? Yep, these are all water pollution. So water pollution can happen two ways. One, you could just dump things into a river or stream, or it could come out of a different place that ends up in our waters and streams, in our rivers and streams. So this first picture you're looking at is coal ash. We have coal ash plants along the banks of the Dan River throughout our watershed. And when you make electricity from coal, which a lot of us, about 90% of you are getting your electricity from coal, afterwards it creates this nasty byproduct. And sometimes that can end up in our water. This next picture shows hydraulic fracturing. Some of us get our electricity or our heat from natural gas. In order to get natural gas, they must put about 10,000 gallons of chemicals into the ground to break apart rock. And when the rock breaks free, the shale, it's called, natural gas comes out. But sometimes all those chemicals are left in the ground. And finally, some people throw their tires or refrigerators or just litter into our waterways, and that can cause pollution as well. So when we look at this, what kind of pollution do we see here? This is soil pollution. Soil pollution comes when we put things that don't belong in the soil into the dirt, and it can take away from the natural nutrients that make our soil healthy. So here in the Dan River Basin, we have a few different things that affect our soil. One, there is a uranium mining operation that has been proposed in Pittsylvania County, Virginia. Now, right now, the Commonwealth of Virginia does not allow mining, but there is test mining happening on the site, and this can cause problems to our soil. In the middle, you see pipelines. Pipelines are built in order to move natural gas from one place to another. We need natural gas, but sometimes those pipelines can have leaks. And when they leak natural gas, that gets into the soil. And finally, litter. Litter is one of the biggest problems we have in our watershed. And when that litter hits the ground and seeps into it, it can cause a lot of problems. So it's called effluence when pollution is coming from our factories. After they make what they're making, sometimes there's byproducts, and sometimes they end up in our rivers and streams. In farming and in gardening, sometimes farmers put pesticides and fertilizers onto the soil, which can cause some problems. Not all pesticides and fertilizers cause problems to humans and animals, but some do. And finally, every county, every city, every town has a landfill where your garbage ends up. And after a while, all the chemicals and pollutants from that soil, from that garbage, leach down into the soil and end up in our soil. So what are some of the impacts of pollution? Well, you can see up here, this poor little red fox got his head caught in a can that somebody threw carelessly into the forest. Right here, you can see that these vegetables have been sprayed with chemicals and are decaying. Down here, you know, that plastic that comes along all your soda cans. Well, if you don't cut it up before it ends in a landfill, a turtle can crawl into it and be very harmful. Plastics in our water are eaten by fish. Right now, they're saying some of our, about 90% of our fish have plastics in it because humans have thrown plastic into waters. So if you like to eat fish, you definitely don't want plastic in them. Our trees can be hurt. Forests can be decayed and die because of pollution. And up here is what is an algae bloom. This is caused in our water when too many unwanted materials and chemicals and pollutants are at the bottom of our waterway, and they kill all those good bugs that are in the bottom that keep our waterways clean. And so it rises to the top. And I can tell you, these are really stinky things. You don't want those in your water. So you might not care about fish, and you might not care about your food or air or animals, but you probably care about yourself. And air pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution can have a lot of negative effects on the human body. Everything from headaches, nausea, skin irritation, lung issues, all caused by pollution. So when you're thinking about pollution, you also have to think about some really common questions, like where does your food come from? And do you care whether or not your food production is causing pollution? Where does your water from the faucet come from? About 90% of you are getting your water from our rivers and streams. Do you care whether or not it's polluted? Your rivers and streams are polluted before you get that water. And where do you get your electricity? Again, a lot of you are getting it from coal and natural gas. We need electricity, but we also need to be really careful about how we get our energy. And we need to look for alternatives that are better for our environment. So what can you do? Well, there are a lot of things you can do. You can get out and pick up the trash that other people put down so it doesn't pollute our water or our soil or our air. You can plant trees. Trees are great ways to clean the air. You can turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth. Conserving water is one of the best things that we can do. You can save hundreds of gallons of water just by turning off the faucet. Not using plastic bottles, use reusable bottles when you have drinks. Turn off lights that aren't being used. Turn off your computer when it's not being used. Turn off the TV when nobody's watching. Conserve, conserve, conserve your electricity. And finally, just throw away your garbage. Don't let it hit the ground, because everything that lands on the ground ends up in a waterway. And finally, reuse, reduce, recycle. These three things can help conserve energy, and it can also help protect us against the threats that cause air pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution in your community. Thanks so much for joining me today.